The shareholder briefing on the 41st floor had just hit 3:14 p.m. when 6-year-old Lily pushed through the tall double doors. Every head turned. Alexandra Kane stood at the head of the table in her charcoal Brioni suit, clicker raised, mid-sentence on the $400 million acquisition. Her gold ring caught the overhead light, the tiny North Star engraving flashing once. Lily clutched her stuffed bunny tighter and pointed straight at it. "My dad has one exactly like that, with the same words inside." The room froze. Alexandra felt the floor drop from under her $5,000 Italian heels. The man she had ordered removed from her building 3 hours earlier now waited in the corridor outside, maintenance uniform covered in drywall dust. She had no idea the quiet single father she had dismissed was the original mind behind every line of code that still ran her $2.4 billion empire. What exactly had been buried with those forged signatures 8 years earlier? Tell me in the comments below which country you're watching from. The quiet electrician stepped into the marble lobby of North Star Tower at 6:47 a.m. exactly 3 weeks before everything changed. Drywall dust still clung to the cuffs of his navy work shirt. His steel-toed boots left faint white prints on the polished floor. No one looked twice. That same morning, Alexandra Kane stood 41 floors above him in the same charcoal Brioni suit, $5,000 Italian heels clicking across her glass office. She had not slept. A half-empty espresso cup cooled on the corner of her desk while she rehearsed the 9 a.m. shareholder briefing. On her right hand, the gold band caught the rising sun, a single North Star etched deep into the metal. Inside, too small for anyone else to read, for words and 2 sets of initials she had been told belonged to a dead man. She had worn the ring every day for 8 years. It reminded her she stood on the shoulders of giants. Or so she had been told. Down on Mercer Street, 6-year-old Lily Hale chipped at her cereal bowl with a spoon and asked her father 4 questions before he finished tying his boots. Why is the sky different colors on different sides? Whether bees get dizzy from flying in circles. If the neighbor's cat was lonely. And just as Marcus reached for his jacket, one more. "Daddy, why do you always look at your ring before you leave?" Marcus paused. The gold band on his right hand caught the cheap overhead light. Inside it read, "First Light, MH&ER." He ran his thumb across the tiny star. "It reminds me who I am, kiddo." Lily accepted the answer the way she accepted gravity. She hopped off the counter, tucked her faded stuffed bunny under one arm, and declared herself ready for school. Marcus locked the apartment door behind them. 3rd floor. No elevator. The hallway bull-buzzed like an angry bee. His faded blue pickup waited at the curb with 187,000 miles on the odometer and a crack in the passenger window sealed with heavy tape. He drove Lily to school listening to her explain a playground war that had started over a stolen blue marker and now involved 3 kingdoms and one very confused hamster. He waited at the curb until she disappeared through the double doors, then turned the truck toward downtown. North Star Tower rose 41 stories above the financial district, all blue glass and morning gold. To the city, it was a landmark. To Marcus, it was the building he had once sketched on the back of a grocery receipt in a kitchen the size of the lobby. He now entered through the service door. He pulled his hard hat from the passenger seat and walked toward the freight elevator. His crew was rerouting the electrical backbone on level 29. 9 days. That was all the time he needed. 41 floors above, Alexandra was already on her second video call. It was 6:52. Her coffee remained untouched. She did not think about the maintenance crew on 29. She did not think about the ring on her finger. At 11:37, the school lost power. A substation failure 6 blocks away. The office called parents in alphabetical order. By the time they reached Hale, Marcus was deep inside a conduit chase with both arms above his head and a voltage tester clenched in his teeth. His phone vibrated against his ribs. He could not reach it. 8 minutes later, he surfaced, called back, and learned his daughter was waiting in the security office. He called his only friend in the city, Thomas Reed. a defense attorney who had sat beside Marcus in a hospital room 8 years earlier when Marcus could not remember his own daughter's name. Thomas said the bridge was closed. 43 minutes at best. Lily lasted 9 minutes in the security office before she slipped out, followed the elevators, and pressed the highest button she could reach. Number 41. The doors opened on a silence and charcoal carpet. She walked until she found tall, double doors with brass handles. She pulled. Inside, 14 people in dark suits sat around a long, oval table. Alexandra Kane stood at the head in her charcoal Brioni suit, clicker in hand, mid-sentence. Every head turned. Lily stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed bunny, and looked straight at the tall woman. "Ma'am," she said, voice bright as morning, "my dad has a ring just like yours." The room stopped breathing. Alexandra's fingers tightened on the edge of the table until her knuckles went white. The North Star on her right hand suddenly felt ice cold. "What did you say?" Lily pointed, unafraid. "The one with the star. My dad has the exact same one. He wears it on this finger." She held up her own small, right hand, fourth finger. Before Alexandra could speak, the door opened again. Marcus Hale stood there in his dust-covered work shirt, hard hat under one arm, plaster on his left sleeve. His eyes found Lily first. Relief. Then they rose to meet Alexandra's. For 2 full seconds, neither of them moved. "Come on, little star," Marcus said, voice steady. He placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "We're going downstairs." At the threshold, Lily turned back. "Sorry for interrupting. My teacher says we should always say that." The door closed. Alexandra stood perfectly still for 4 full seconds, then lifted the clicker and continued exactly where she had left off. But her right hand stayed closed for the rest of the meeting, the ring pressed hard into her palm. The instant the room emptied, she called building security. 6 minutes later, the contractor file for Marcus Hale lay open on her desk. The badge photo matched the man who had just walked out of her boardroom. No criminal record, no red flags, just an address on Mercer Street she had never visited. She unlocked the bottom drawer of her desk, the one no assistant had a key for, and removed the original incorporation folder given to her by the late chairman 8 years earlier. On page 2, listed as co-founder and chief architect, was the name Marcus Hale. Handwritten in the margin beside it, the words "missing," presumed deceased. Alexandra sat motionless for a long time. Then she opened the security footage from the elevator, zoomed in on Marcus's right hand as he reached past Lily to press the lobby button. Same ring, same star, same impossible truth. At 2:14 a.m., she sent a text from her personal phone. "I need to speak with you, not as your employer. Bring whatever you have." Marcus read it while Lily slept in the back seat of the truck, bunny under her chin. Thomas Reed arrived 10 minutes later, read the message, and leaned against the fender. "She found the documents," Thomas said. "Are you ready for this to move faster?" Marcus looked at the concrete ceiling above them. 41 floors of steel and glass he had once described in a single paragraph to a skeptical loan officer. That paragraph had been Emily's wording, not his. He had always been better with circuits than sentences. "I still need the original server logs from February 17th, he said. "They're on the 29th floor archive drive." "Then you get those first," Thomas replied. "Everything or nothing." Marcus glanced at his sleeping daughter, her small hand still curled around the bunny's ear. "That's not nothing." He texted back. "Tomorrow, 6 p.m., the small cafe 1 block south on Mercer. Come alone." Alexandra arrived at 5:58 wearing a dark coat and no makeup. Marcus wore the same work shirt. Lily sat at a corner table with a coloring book, headphones on, feet swinging. Alexandra placed an enlarged photocopy of the incorporation papers on the table between them. His name circled in red. 8 years ago, you were co-founder and chief architect of North Star Systems. You were listed as missing, then presumed dead. Yes, you are not dead. No, she studied him. Why are you here doing electrical work under a false badge instead of lawyering up and going public? Marcus wrapped both hands around his coffee cup to keep them steady. Because the only two people who knew the full story were the late chairman and his general counsel. One is dead. The other spent 8 years making sure the paper trail told a different story. The signature on the transfer document is not mine. The ink weight on the capital letters is different. The board meeting on February 17th, where I voted against selling our core patents to an overseas shell company. Those original minutes are still on the archive drive on 29. I've been working my way toward that drive for 3 weeks. Alexandra did not blink. The copies I received are missing pages 7 and 8. Marcus looked up sharply. I noticed it yesterday, she said. The replacement font is off by half a point, and the general counsel signed as witness to the transfer. Yet I have an email from him sent from Hong Kong the same day. He was not even in the country. Silence stretched between them. Outside, a city bus rumbled past. Inside, Lily's marker made small, careful sounds. I bought this company in good faith, Alexandra said. It was not a defense. It was a fact. I know you did, Marcus replied. She had expected rage. There was none. My wife died in the crash they staged, he said quietly. Brake line cut. She was 7 months pregnant. Lily was born 3 months later while I was still in the hospital. I lost almost 2 years of memory. By the time it came back, the chairman had taken the company private, rewritten the history, and the general counsel had vanished with a story already prepared. Alexandra placed both palms flat on the table. Her ring caught the light. She looked at it, then at him, and said the only honest thing she could. I am sorry. Marcus nodded once. What do you need from me? She asked. 9 days, he said. I pull the original logs. Then you have everything you need to take to the board yourself. I don't want the company back. I want the record corrected. I want my wife's name listed as co-author of the first business plan. She typed it on a second-hand laptop that cost us 2 weeks of groceries. No one remembers that. Alexandra met his eyes for a long moment. What was her name? Emily, Marcus said. Emily Reisehade. Alexandra was quiet a long time. Then she said, I will make sure the board hears that name. On the drive home, Lily pressed her forehead to the cool window and watched the streetlights slide by. Daddy, is the lady okay? She looked at your ring like she was trying to solve a really hard puzzle. Marcus tightened his grip on the wheel. She was solving a puzzle, yes. Did she solve it? He thought about the archive drive, the 9 days, the weight of 8 stolen years. Most of it. Lily seemed satisfied. She pulled the bunny into her lap and closed her eyes. Before she drifted off, she whispered, She seems like someone who thinks really hard about things. I like that. For the first time in weeks, the knot behind Marcus's eyes loosened. 2 nights later, the building slept. Marcus slipped into the 29th floor server closet at 4:03 a.m. The redundant power bus had been throwing errors for 48 hours. 3 senior engineers had spent 2 full days chasing ghosts and failed. He worked by the glow of a single pen light. 11 minutes later, the bus stabilized. Every rack light blinked green in perfect sequence. Marcus stared at his own hands for a long second, then leaned close to the dead microphone still clipped to the rack. Nova, he whispered. The old call sign left his lips like it had never been gone. He killed the light, slipped the panel back into place, and disappeared down the service stairwell before the first guard finished his coffee. The next morning, the lead engineer stood in the same closet, scratching his head at the flawless logs. No one noticed the faint drywall dust on the floor near the conduit. Marcus was already back on Mercer Street by then, seated at the tiny kitchen table while Lily helped him fix a burnout string of Christmas lights. She held his multimeter with both hands, tongue poking out in concentration. The lights are like stars, Daddy. They just need someone to remember their pattern. Her small fingers traced the exact sequence her mother used to map on napkins at 3 a.m. Marcus's eyes stung. He looked at the North Star ring on his right hand and felt the engraving press into his skin. First light. He swallowed once and let her lead. Over the following 9 days, he moved like a shadow. Unaltered server logs from February 17th. Mismatched ink density on the forged transfer papers. Invoice A. 3194. Time-stamped emails proving the chairman had been in Zurich the exact hour he supposedly witnessed the signature. Each piece slid into place with the soft click of a circuit closing. Lily watched some of it from the couch, Bunny in her lap, never asking why Daddy stayed up until the streetlights outside turned off one by one. She simply left half her peanut butter sandwich on a plate beside his laptop each night and went back to coloring stars. The chairman did not wait. He never had. By 8:07, the next morning, Alexandra's private line rang. The chairman had seen the security logs, the floor access, the timestamps. He arrived at her office at 9:30, carrying a thick folder and the easy smile of a man who had never been caught. "I have a security concern," he said, placing the folder on her desk. "The contractor on 29 has a history of identity issues following a nervous breakdown. I've already prepared the termination order." Alexandra opened the folder. Photographs. A private investigator report. A removal order already drafted on thick letterhead. She looked up at him. "You had all of this prepared already?" The chairman's smile stayed fixed. "I protect this company the same way I always have. The same way you protected it 8 years ago when Emily's brake line was cut." The smile did not disappear, but the eyes behind it went flat. "That is a very serious accusation." "Yes," Alexandra said. "It is." She stood. "I am calling an emergency board session for 9 a.m. tomorrow. All 14 seats required. I'm also freezing every data asset on the 29th floor under legal hold. Nothing moves. Nothing is deleted." The chairman placed both hands on her desk. "Alexandra, you are making a mistake." "I have made mistakes before," she said. "The difference is this time I can see them clearly." He left. Alexandra stood at the window and watched his car pull out of the garage below. She did not call Marcus. She did not need to. She trusted that the 9 days had already begun. The chairman's Mercedes disappeared into morning traffic on Franklin Street, its taillights bleeding red against wet asphalt. Alexander stayed at the window until the scent of his cologne, cedar, and something sharper had faded from the air. On her desk, the folder still lay open, the private investigator's report face down like a guilty card. She picked up her phone, dialed a single memorized number, and waited through 2 rings. "Maintenance," a gravel voice answered. "Conference room B, 9 a.m. tomorrow," she said. "Every board member. No exceptions. And pull the original schematics for the 29th floor HVAC system. The ones dated 2015. A pause. "Copy that, ma'am." She ended the call. In the outer office, Marcus had already cleared the calendar. No one asked why. They simply moved. That night, the apartment smelled of burnt coffee and crayons. Lily sat cross-legged on the rug, the faded stuffed bunny, its left ear still missing a stitch from the night Emily never came home, tucked under one arm while she drew another constellation. Marcus stood at the kitchen counter reviewing the new security logs one last time. The chairman had tried to scrub 3 access entries between 2:14 and 2:47 a.m. He had almost succeeded. Marcus closed the laptop. "He's panicking." "Good," Alexandra said quietly. She reached past him for the half-eaten sandwich Lily had left on a blue plate. The bread had gone dry at the edges. She ate anyway. By 6:42, the next morning, the boardroom on the 32nd floor smelled of fresh varnish and fear. 14 leather chairs. 14 water glasses filled to exactly 2 inches. The chairman arrived at 8:51 wearing a midnight blue Brioni suit and the same easy smile, though the Patek on his wrist caught the light of fraction too often. He took his seat at the head of the table as if nothing had changed. Alexandra remained standing. She placed a single thumb drive in the center of the polished walnut. Item 1. Forensic audit of all 2015 override codes used on the East Wing elevators. Item 2. GPS data proving the chairman's company jet was wheels up from Teterboro at 11:03 p.m. the night Emily's car left the road. Item 3. The chairman cut her off with a soft laugh. We're not here for conspiracy hour, Alexandra. We are here because a mentally unstable contractor has been wandering our most sensitive floor. A few heads nodded. Old allies. Men who still measured loyalty in golf handicaps and summer houses on the Cape. Alexandra didn't raise her voice. She simply pressed play on the projector. The first image filled the wall, a grainy still from the garage camera at 1:57 a.m. The chairman's silhouette unmistakable even in the low light. He was sliding something beneath the wheel well of a black Audi. The timestamp read October 12th, 2015. The room went still. Marcus spoke from the far corner, voice flat. The brake fluid line was cut with a 3mm tubing cutter. Same tool signature as the one recovered from a locker on 29 two nights ago. Locker 4471. Combination was the chairman's daughter's birthday. The chairman's smile finally slipped. This is circumstantial at best. Alexandra advanced the slides. Another photo. This one sharper. A man in a gray hoodie caught mid-stride, leaving the service elevator. The hoodie was unzipped just enough to show the glint of a gold signet ring on his right hand, the same ring the chairman wore right now. She let the silence stretch until the air itself felt brittle. Then she dropped the next piece, softly, like a second stone into still water. Call sign Raven 1. Half the table frowned. The other half, the older ones, straightened in their seats. Marcus continued, as if reading from flight log. 287 combat missions over 11 years. 3 confirmed MiG kills you never logged because the mission was black. The man you tried to bury under nervous breakdown paperwork flew the last successful low-level insertion into Kandahar before the drawdown. He still holds the record for night landings on a pitching carrier deck in 30-knot winds. His name is on the wall at Little Creek, even if the Pentagon pretends it isn't. The chairman's knuckles went white around the edge of the table. Alexandra kept her tone even. Yesterday, he finished reconstructing the original firmware for the building's environmental controls. The version you replaced after the accident. The version that logged every unauthorized override you made that week. She clicked again. New slide. Lines of code highlighted in red. Timestamps that matched the chairman's private calendar exactly. One board member, a woman in pearl earrings who had known Emily, covered her mouth. The chairman pushed back his chair. The legs scraped like a scream across marble. You have no standing to call this meeting, he said, voice low. I built this company. No, Alexandra answered. You inherited it. Then you broke it. There's a difference. She reached into her jacket and produced the object that had lived in her desk drawer for 9 years. A single paper napkin, edges worn soft, still bearing the faint blue ink of Emily's last hurried note. Asterisk pick up milk. Love you both. See you at dinner. Asterisk the bunny had been clutched in Lily's tiny fist the night they read it together. Alexandra laid the napkin on the table where everyone could see it. The same night you cut those brakes, my sister left this on the kitchen counter. She was coming home to a 5-year-old who still sleeps with a stuffed rabbit missing its ear. That rabbit has been on every couch, every courtroom bench, and every late-night kitchen table while we rebuilt what you destroyed. The chairman stared at the napkin as if it might burn him. For the first time, his eyes showed something close to recognition. But the boardroom door opened before he could speak. A man in a plain navy jacket stepped inside. Mid-40s. Quiet eyes. The kind of face you forgot until it was the last thing you saw. He carried a battered metal briefcase that looked like it had traveled through more sand than boardrooms. He didn't look at the chairman. He looked only at Alexandra. Firmware restore is complete, he said. His voice carried the low calm of someone who had once talked a wounded helicopter home on 2 engines. Every keystroke from 2015 is back, including the ones that changed the security camera timestamps, including the transfer of $3.4 million to an account in the Caymans the same week. He set the briefcase on the table. Inside, rows of printed logs sat beside a small plastic evidence bag containing a 3mm tubing cutter, still flecked with dried brake fluid. The chairman's face had gone the color of old ash. Marcus leaned forward. "We're not done yet, sir. The Department of Transportation just received a priority courier package. Their investigators will be here within the hour. Seat 18C on the red eye from Dulles. They asked me to tell you they're bringing a warrant." The new arrival, still unnamed to most of the room, reached into his pocket and produced a folded letter, the same one that had started this entire chain 9 days earlier. He placed it beside Emily's napkin. 2 pieces of paper, one worn with grief, the other crisp with justice. Lily's bunny had traveled with that letter in a backpack for years. Tonight, it waited at home on the couch, one ear still unfinished, but no longer alone. The chairman sank back into his chair. His Patek caught the light again, but this time the second hand seemed to hesitate. Alexandra watched him and felt the slow click of another circuit closing. Outside the tall windows, Franklin Street moved on, horns rising and falling like distant waves. Inside the boardroom, the air had changed. 14 pairs of eyes now looked at the man in the Brioni suit the way people look at something already falling. But the fall wasn't finished. Not yet. The chairman's private line began to vibrate in his pocket. He didn't answer it. The screen showed a Zurich area code. He closed his eyes for the first time since the meeting began. Somewhere in the building, on the 29th floor, a single server rack hummed back to life under restored 2015 firmware. Its diagnostic lights blinked green in perfect sequence, counting up to a number that would soon be displayed on every monitor in the company. 287. The hidden pilot had just finished his final mission, and the chairman still had 6 more hours before the federal agents walked through the lobby doors carrying handcuffs and a photograph of a little girl's unfinished drawing of stars. The boardroom doors swung open at exactly 9:17 the next morning. Sunlight sliced across the long mahogany table as 2 federal agents in plain gray suits stepped inside, badges clipped to their belts, a thin manila folder between them. Behind them walked the original mockers, 22 senior shareholders who had been summoned by emergency text at 6:02 a.m. Their Italian loafers squeaked on the polished floor. The same floor where, 9 days earlier, they had watched the chairman toss a single folded letter onto Emily's lap and say, "Take your little toy and go. This company doesn't run on nostalgia." Marcus stood at the head of the table now, sleeves still rolled, the evidence bag with the tubing cutter resting in front of him like an exhibit. The chairman sat alone at the far end, tie loosened, the Patek finally still on his wrist. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft rustle of pages as the lead agent slid a single photograph across the table. It showed the brake line of the Gulfstream G650 cleanly severed, 3mm of copper tubing glinting under forensic light. 287, Marcus said, voice low and steady. That's how many times this firmware patch saved lives between 2015 and last week. The patcher team deleted the day you fired the only man who understood it. He looked straight at the shareholders. Seat 18C, Dulles to Chicago. That was my daughter Lily on that plane. The pilot who landed it with failing hydraulics was flying on my code. The code you called scrap metal. A collective inhale rippled through the room. One woman in the back pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. The chairman's shoulders folded inward, the Brioni suit suddenly too large. Marcus reached into his jacket and produced the folded letter again. He opened it with careful fingers, the same way he had done every night for 4 years. The crayon stars Lily had drawn at age 6 stared back at everyone. He laid the napkin beside it. Emily's napkin, still carrying the faint scent of hospital coffee from the day she had cried in the cafeteria after being told her daughter's medical bills would no longer be covered. The lead agent cleared his throat. "Mr. Chairman, the DOT has frozen every account tied to the firmware rollback. Effective immediately, Marcus Hale is reinstated as Chief Systems Architect with full retroactive compensation. Your resignation has already been drafted. Silence stretched until it hurt. Then the chairman rose on unsteady legs. The Patek caught the light one last time as he walked the length of the table, stopping directly in front of Marcus. His voice came out hoarse, almost unrecognizable. 9 days ago, I looked at a single father holding a child's drawing and saw only weakness. I was wrong. I cost this company its soul and nearly cost a little girl her father. I am sorry, Marcus. I'm so damn sorry. He turned to the shareholders, eyes wet for the first time any of them could remember. And I'm sorry to all of you. I let arrogance nearly kill the very thing that kept us flying. Effective immediately, I stepped down. The board should elect Marcus in my place, if he'll have it. Marcus gave the smallest nod. No thing, just the quiet weight of a debt finally paid. That evening, the boardroom lights were off, but one desk lamp still burned on the 29th floor. Marcus sat alone, Lily's bunny on his knee, its unfinished ear now stitched with careful blue thread. The same thread Emily had carried in her pocket for years. He ran a thumb over the letter, over the napkin, over the crayon stars that had traveled farther than any Gulf Stream. Down on Franklin Street, the horns had quieted. Somewhere above the clouds, another red eye climbed into the night, its systems humming on 2015 firmware, 287 safe missions and counting. Some debts are collected in courtrooms or auctions or boardrooms. This one was collected in the small space between a child's drawing and a father's steady hands. And in the end, the man who once held all the power learned that true status was never measured in Italian shoes or Swiss watches. It was measured in the moment a little girl's unfinished bunny finally came home.